All right. Hello again. We're back with the manifesto. Last time I got cut short, so this time I want to give it at least a half an hour. I want to finish this section, get to part three. Part three, we'll see. We'll see. I'll at least get through part three. Maybe I'll just stop there because that would be a very natural stopping point. Where was I? But in the summer of 2014, yeah, that's where we are, right? Should I zoom in? Okay. Sweet. I'm gonna start. No need to say anything else. And we are recording, right? Yep. Let me do a timer. That's not what I wanted. "30 minutes. Okay. Boom. Okay. So, but in the summer of 2014, just as I was getting bored of my own creative work, I also found myself fed up with the space as a whole. Turns out, it wasn't just our site playing cynical aggregation games. It was all of us. Once I saw the pattern on our blog, I saw it everywhere. The entire ecosystem of filmmaking blogs, podcasts, and YouTube channels was recycling news and churning out half-baked content at a remarkable pace. From my perch atop the ecosystem, I could watch a story break, then spread from one aggregator to the next, eventually blanketing our entire corner of the internet in a thick smog of mediocrity. It was truly something to behold. So, okay, I have read that paragraph already, and I did talk about it. So if you want to know all of my thoughts on that paragraph, watch the last video. So I'll just move into the next one. Increasingly, I found myself craving well-crafted, nourishing, informational meals. But instead, all I could find was an abundance of mass-produced, nutritionally void food substance, fresh off a soulless assembly line. This is how I came to be totally disillusioned. Within the span of 6 months, the pattern destroyed my own creative outlook, along with the corner of the internet I wanted so badly to love. Okay, I also read that one. I remember talking about spam, right? Spam, junk mail, spam email, right? Like that's what that is. It's like non-nutritious, and it's nutritious because, or not nutritious because, like really well targeted marketing that actually fucking addresses your own actual problems is not, that's not spam. Spam is just the fucking random shit that you get in the mail that has nothing to do with you, right? It's like, why am I getting this shit? It has no nutritive value for you. It doesn't address your needs and desires at all. And I mean, I don't know if that's literally why it's called that, but that's what makes sense to me. So yeah, okay, keep reading. It's not just the filmmaking space either. Perhaps you've noticed the pattern play out in your favorite corners of the internet. I'm willing to bet you have. Like I said, once you see it, you can never unsee it. Yeah. I mean, I it just occurred to me like the corner of the internet that is the most relevant to all of us right now. I think if you're watching this, because this is the context for this video, is Teapot, right? This part of Twitter. And I don't know. I don't think that I've seen this pattern exactly in the Teapot arena. Maybe I just don't look close enough. I mean, I follow zero people, so I'm not like really paying super close attention to the space, like, yeah, I in a way I kind of have created my own bubble, um, for good and bad, you know. So maybe there is this pattern playing out, and if you were listening to this, and you were hearing me say this, and you think that it it is playing out in some way, I would love to hear you describe that. Like, reach out to me. Maybe you don't want to do that publicly, so like send me a DM. But and Rob, obviously, you're the one that wrote it, so yeah, is the pattern playing out within Teapot? I'm super curious to hear about that. Um, I mean, there are some respects in which it's true, like so many of us progressively like end up being interested in the same thing, but that's also why we all gather together, because we are sort of all interested in the same things, right? So it's like a reason why we're together, but then it's also the consequence of it is that we then like homogenize to varying degrees. So I noticed it next in the world of indie film, not with content about filmmaking, mind you, but in the films themselves. Turns out, after you've seen a couple dozen indie films, they all start blending together. They hew to the same genre conventions, use the same story structures, rely on the same aesthetic choices, and often feature the exact same actors in eerily similar roles. Even the trailers and posters, tools designed to differentiate a project and get people excited, blend together after a while. I don't know. I mean, but that's how that goes. I mean, I'm thinking of there's a book on like script writing for movies and pitching movie ideas. It's like Don't Kill the Cat or something like that. But it's all about like understanding what are the most common tropes, because that's what people want to see, you know? And that's how myths are. Like if you read, I mean, I haven't really read Joseph Campbell, but like I have read Greek myths and I studied that in school to a degree, and I'm familiar enough with all that stuff. It's like myths and narrative, like theological religious narrative, for example. Like you get many of the same stories, with slightly different characters, but there's the same pattern. So I guess I'm sort of projecting onto you right now that you are really unhappy about the pattern. I mean, because the sentence at the bottom of this page is seeing the pattern play out in this arena broke my heart. But it's like, that's not a new thing, right? Like the pattern, the fact that there are certain narrative structures that everybody gravitates to, that's not a bad thing, and it's not a new thing. Um, right? Like boy meets girl. The simplest, oldest story structure in the book. I mean, not necessarily, but you know, there's so many variations on that. And I guess from one perspective, you could get tired of it, but at the same time, it's like we like that story, so we're willing to watch it over and over again because it's entertaining and makes us feel good. It fits into how we see the world or how we want to see ourselves or whatever it is. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Uh, but yeah, so I mean, it definitely happens in like the mainstream movies, but then interesting to hear that it happens in indie movies. It makes sense, right? Especially if you're in a position where you want your movie to be popular, or your book or whatever it is, doing things in the same pattern with the same narrative structure, like taking something that's very familiar and making it slightly different and slightly new, like that makes it easier to grasp for people, and that makes it easier for it to be popular. I'm not saying that's the only thing that can be popular, but it's a It's a surer bet, right? Because making movies is fucking expensive. Like, I mean, it's a great thing that this is about filmmaking because, you know, more than writing a book, which you can do by yourself on a computer with like just literally a Word document, making movies is expensive. And so, unless you have the resources or like fucking the balls to just be like, yeah, I don't really care if people pay me for this, I don't care how successful this is. You're gonna want there to be a payout for the investment that you make. So it makes sense that you would then do what you've seen work. And that can be said all across the board, right? Who we see being successful with the opposite sex, we're like, okay, well, I guess like buff, charismatic dudes with badass beards works in general. So let me be like that. And whatever, however it is for women, right? I mean, not all of us do that, but it's very common. Um, in companies, right? Like, I know other marketing friends of mine have gotten frustrated in their jobs where they have ideas about how to spread the message about what the company's doing, but the CEO, for example, or the marketing people, they are very risk averse and they're just like, let's do what we see other people doing, which seems to work. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it works okay, but not like exceptionally well. And so I guess we all want to copy each other. But it makes sense. If you're risk averse, you don't want to take a big risk, you don't want to fail, you do what you see work. So, anyway, I mean, I did this right in all I do this in copywriting. Like, I mean, depends what the context is, but many times I have written things and worked on things which are heavily like, this is what a swipe file is for copywriters. I don't know how well known that term is, what that is. Swipe file is like where you collect a bunch of ads that you like, ads that you know to have been successful, and you use them as inspiration. And you can use it as inspiration in different kinds of ways. Like, you can copy the structure and you can copy the hook and you can really like try to mimic it, or you can just use it as inspiration and just be like, oh, that's a fun idea, and like that gives me this other idea, and just it's a jumping off point, and it doesn't really mirror it, but anyway, that's what a swipe file is. It's almost like collecting your own pattern, um, so that you don't have to start from scratch, and that you can at least have some sense that what you're going to do is grounded and relates, and is similar to things that have worked in the past, because you don't want to just do something totally new and random and have it flop. Right, a lot of times that's just not what you want. But there's all sorts of reasons. Like my bio, right? Marketing through the lens of IFS, internal family systems therapy, it is that because I got really fascinated with the reasons why we do marketing in the ways that we do it. Like, what are our motivations, and how do our motivations and our fears and our, you know, what we feel we need, and what the degree to which we feel secure or insecure about ourselves, or the need to gain self-esteem from outside of ourselves, like through money or through attention, like how does that shape how we do marketing? Because I think it's like the fucking core, right? And it shapes how entire companies are run. But anyway, let's keep going. That was quite a rant. Okay. Seeing the pattern play out in this arena broke my heart. The draw of indie filmmaking, in theory, is to be able to take risks and tell stories that Hollywood never could. This is where creativity and originality and resourcefulness are supposed to shine. And while that does occasionally happen, mostly it does not. Just like every other limb of the media corpus, the creative decisions in the indie film world are driven by a set of economic incentives, along with a culture of mimicry, status seeking, and insecurity. Mix these toxic ingredients up, and you're left with a predictable stew of conformist mediocrity. Okay, I hear you, Rob. I hear you. I think we connected because I mean, not only for this reason, but like one of the things that we connected over was our mutual distaste for this and our experience in doing this and being around this and feeling stuck in this kind of culture. But at the same time, like, where I push back is like, that stuff's okay. Like, this is why, again, the marketing through the lens of IFS, like, what in us makes us feel so upset by this pattern, right? Like, yeah, people are insecure. People feel like they need a lot of money or need a lot of status in order to be okay, right? And so they do they spend their life living that out in various ways through their career, through their creative efforts, through their whatever, like in their businesses, and that's okay. Like, let's not demonize people for having insecurities. And I can say that with a little bit more distance right now because I'm feeling in a good place and I'm not like frustrated. So I have a little more easily compassion for these people, but I definitely know like what you're getting at. Like, you know that, right? What was the like one of my earliest threads that I really felt, I don't know, proud of, or like really represented where I was coming from, was I kind of just shared a conversation that I had with another marketing friend of mine where I was like, is it possible to be a good marketer if you give zero fucks about like the money and like doing good for the business, and you only care about doing good for the customers? Like, is it possible to be a good marketer? Because I always felt like I always sided more with the customers than the actual businesses that I have worked for. And that's like its own weird thing. Like, why is that? Right? But I would hear my friends of mine being like super invested in the business goals, and I was always like, that doesn't compel me. Like, I want to do. Well, I think I was also in some ways deluding myself. But one thing that I liked to say is like, I want to do what's best for the audience, the customers. I don't care about the business goals. Like, what, like the business goals so often made it feel like we have to be manipulative to, just like use our customers as wallets and not treat them as human beings. And that really pained me, and still does pain me. Less so, but yeah, like that's where I come from. So I'm on the same page, but yeah, that's all. I just want to push back a little bit and be like, let's have also compassion for the people who are really run by like aggressive business goals, because they have their own reasons for why they're doing it, and maybe they're deeply insecure, and that sucks. So, that doesn't make them shitty. It just means that they're insecure, and I wish that they weren't. Okay. And don't even get me started on YouTube. Over the last decade, I've lived through a number of phases in which I'd hone in on a topic, then consume as much information as I could about it. There was a personal development phase, a marketing and online business phase. There were also phases for minimalism, jazz guitar, hockey, psychology, productivity, and politics. This is where the pattern is at its most ugly and destructive, by the way. I've spent ungodly amounts of time watching videos on all the topics above, with YouTube's almighty algorithm supposedly serving up the best of the best. Yeah, me too. But with each new YouTube rabbit hole, after the initial novelty wore off, I'd start to notice all of the videos blending together. Patterns would emerge. Every YouTube bro would start off enthusiastically telling me, smash that like button and hit subscribe, before launching into something eerily indistinguishable from everything surrounding it. It began to feel like YouTubers were but puppets, reading from the same boring script handed down to them from on high. And in each instance, once I noticed the pattern playing out again, I gave up on trying to find new information. I definitely know what you're talking about. I don't feel like I need to add anything because that's literally what happened. That's literally how it is. Every little niche of YouTube, that happens, and it is funny to notice that people having the same calls to action, and almost like, yeah, I don't know. More and more when I hear it, it's funny because it's like, wow, I wonder if these people have like thought about why they're saying this stuff at all, or like where did they learn that that's the right thing to do? Like, are they just copying what they see other people do? Like, have they read some advice about how to do it, or what? Like, but just punching people in the face from the beginning of the video, being like, hit the subscribe button and make sure to follow and hit notifications so you don't miss a video, blah blah blah. Like, before you even like say anything else. I mean, at this point, we've all watched enough YouTube that we know that people want us to do that. Like, you don't need to say that, right? Or you can say it more artfully or subtly. Like, I'm not gonna forget about subscribing. Like, I've been on YouTube for fucking years. Like, I don't not know that I can like and subscribe to a video or a channel, right? Like, you don't need to remind me at the beginning of every single video. But I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I know what this is like. One of the places I tried to seek refuge in was books. I think that was like my first legitimate stumble. One of the places I tried to seek refuge was in books. But it turns out, much like the blogging industry, indie films, and YouTube, once you've read a handful of books on any given subject, you've read them all. Most every new non-fiction book is filled with the same cheap anecdotes and platitudes. There are 20 pages of recycled advice, padded out by 200 pages of filler. And I've heard from friends in the fiction and literary worlds that the pattern is just as prevalent in those two. Okay, I'm going to, again, here, like, yeah, that's true if you're looking into certain kinds of books. Like, if you see book YouTube or, like, self-development YouTube or whatever, like, everyone's reading the same fucking books. Yeah, because everyone's reading just fucking pop books, right? Or even when it comes to philosophy, like, for people who are interested in philosophy, like, a lot of the times, if they're just getting recommendations from everyone else on YouTube or the internet, like, they just end up reading all the same fucking philosophy, right? They all read Nietzsche. Or they all read Stoicism. I remember that was the big thing when I was coming out of college. Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss were popularizing Stoicism big time right around then. But then, yeah, I mean, like, if you are subscribed to Ryan Holiday's book recommendation email list, like, there's a lot of titles in there that I've never heard about, and there's a lot of interesting shit. But at the same time, you've got Ryan Holiday, who is followed by like so insane amount of people at this point. He's recommending books, and then all of the people who just like are Ryan Holiday stands, which I used to be, so like no shame in that. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not ashamed of that in some way. Not that it should be shameful, but I can be embarrassed about it. But yeah, I mean, if you're just getting all your recommendations from that, then everyone who follows Ryan Holiday is going to end up reading the same shit, and it's going to be patterns are going to develop there. And then everyone, or like Farnham Street, same thing. Every, or like fucking Homos, or Sapiens, right? That book. Every fucking buddy was reading that book. Everybody was reading that book. So everyone just ends up gravitating to the same things. But like, there is a lot more out there. There's a lot more content out there. Fucking, why are we calling it content? Like, that's stupid. And that's interesting that I just said stupid, because I rarely say stupid, and I really don't like that word. But yeah, content, I think that's a terrible word for to describe what people create. Like, I went to St. John's College. We read fucking Aristotle and Plato and Herodotus and Euclid and all these people, right? And like, that's not content. Like, that word doesn't apply there. And I would argue, because of that experience of coming from that background, like, that's what I think of when I think of books. I don't think of just like the things that today's influencers write in order to seem extra legitimate and get book deals. Like, those are technically books, but those aren't really what I think about when I think about books. So yeah, the pattern exists there, but like, there's a lot more to be read. So don't write off books, is all I'm saying. Like, I'm sitting in my friend's apartment right now looking around at his bookshelves. Like, 95% of the books in here I've never heard of before, and I doubt any of you have heard about before. Right? There's Heidegger. There's a primer of ecclesiastical Latin. There is Thomas Aquinas. There is more Aquinas commentary on Aristotle. There is Thomas Merton. There is Aristotle, actual Aristotle. Homer. Right, these are just some of the more obvious ones. There's some giant fucking books about Johann Sebastian Bach. There's Hegel. There's many books about Bach. There's a book called The Body and Society by someone named Brown. I don't know what that is, but it sounds interesting. Right? So like, none of the books that I'm seeing in here, or there's some Graham Greene, there's Wallace Stevens. There's books written by friends of ours, like books of poetry. Like, there's shit outside of the pattern, and I guess, you're not saying that there's nothing that falls outside of the pattern, but anyway, just want to make the point that like, there's more out there. Where are we at? Okay, perfect. 2 more minutes. I don't know which corners of the internet I'll be drawn to next, but I know the pattern will be there waiting for me, and it fills me with dread. Can you also feel it? that nagging sense that there's a cancer spreading through the internet, the sense that humanity's greatest invention has been captured by mediocrity and bad incentives and cowardice? Can you feel the vastness of the potential to be squandered? Yeah, I can. But yeah, yeah. I honestly don't like, I mean, it's cool. I like the cancer thing, and I remember talking about it in the first video, and we've talked about it, Rob and I, where like that's a level of, what's the best word? Like, audacity is not the right word, but like aggrandizing this idea, that makes me uncomfortable, right? It reminds me of copy that I've written in the past, where it's like, um, there's a term for it in the copy world that's slipping my mind right now. Um, I think honestly, it might be transubstantiation. Yeah, where you take something that's kind of like normal and doesn't have like a fancy name, and then you make it into this big fancy thing. Um, and that's fine. It's not wrong to do it. But right here, it's striking me as a little bit overbearing, that cancer. And to me, it's being like, I mean, this is something Rob and I have talked about. So I'm not saying anything new or anything that he hasn't heard before. But like, again, back to my Twitter bio, right? Like, marketing through the lens of IFS. Like, what's on our side of this marketing? Like, why are we so upset by the fact that people are like doing the pattern and making money and caring about money and shaping their behavior to best get money? Like, what's so bad about that? Like, why is that so upsetting to us? Because I feel you, Rob. I do. Like I said throughout this video, that's where I come from. It has made me so mad in the past, right? And maybe, I don't know. Yeah. I am less frustrated by it now lately. So I am at this place now where I'm like, dude, chill. It's fine. Like, it's fine. You know, if you don't want to do that, do something else. Like, there are ways to find shit that's not consumed by the pattern. There is a way. You don't have to chase the pattern. You don't have to follow the pattern, right? Like, I'm making this video. It's the most clickbaity video ever, right? I mean, not. Like, so this is a way for me to break out of the pattern and make something that's not following the pattern, and so that I don't get consumed by the pattern. Like, I think we've talked about it. That like, I don't actually read that much stuff on the internet anymore. You know, but the stuff I do read, I want to read it really slowly and in depth and think about it, like I'm doing here, and like I did with Sasha's article. Like, I want to actually give it some fucking time. Like, I'm giving it hours worth of time and reflecting on it a lot, you know? And so I honestly don't feel like I'm caught up in the pattern anymore that much. Not to say that I never will be again, but at the moment, I don't really feel that dread that you're saying in this paragraph, where it's like, wherever I find myself drawn to next, I'm just gonna like see the same old shit. Like, I don't really feel that. Like, I understand what you mean, and I've been through it, and I've seen that happen. But like, I don't know. I'm less bothered by it. Sometimes I'm even inspired by it, because look, like, those people are getting extremely popular. The people who follow the pattern, they get a ton of attention, and like, attention can be extremely valuable, right? But just because you follow the pattern and you make like something extremely clickbaity doesn't mean that you can't also make something extremely not clickbaity and more nuanced, right? Like, you can do both. You can be both ways, and you can get the benefit of both. So I don't know. More and more, I feel inspired by the pattern. Be like, oh, interesting. Okay, so that person's like sharing this idea in that way, and it's like really hitting a vein and people are like really into it. Maybe I can spread and like help encourage and spread the word about this other idea that I'm really into by making something like that. And I haven't really done that, but like I find myself inspired by thinking about that kind of thing. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with it. I don't necessarily see it as, I mean, maybe cancer is a good word considering what cancer is, this like unstoppable growth. Um, but yeah, I mean, anyway, that's where I stand with it. And here we are with part three, and I'll stop here and I'll pick up at part three next time. So this was fun. I'm not even halfway through, so there's plenty more to go. It's gonna be. This is already. I mean, this is. I love reading this way, and I hope it's enjoyable and valuable for anyone listening. So, and even if it's not, it's worth doing just for me. So, until next time, have a great day. Have a great weekend. It is Friday, so have some fun. All right, bye bye.